Buy on MTG. Construct your deck. Command your board. Conquer the table.
Hello out there in the wide world of web. What we're looking at today is not necessarily a deck tech, but more or less a deck upgrade. So if you look right here, there's a card that was recently banned. And a friend of mine who is primarily a 40K and additional tabletop game player also plays Magic, and he asked if I would mind taking a look at this, so I told him I would. So right now we're looking at a Locust God list. We can see there's a ton of card draw in here, just the big X-Spell card draw. You could tell that there are some synergies for the Locust entering the battlefield, looking like they're leaning into combat damage, drawing cards from the combat damage, making your bugs bigger, bringing more damage when the bugs come into play. Overall, you can tell that there is a lot of mana rocks. They're definitely not cheap cards by any sense of the word. I mean, there's some pretty expensive cards in here. Force of Will, while we know Mana Vault's jumping through the roof, I don't think this price is accurate anymore. Mana Crypt is tanking, so I don't know if that price is accurate anymore. But overall, the primary complaint with the deck was it felt super susceptible if the Locust God falls, that the deck just loses. So a couple of the things that I looked at across it is, hey, let's make this more resilient so it's not so hyper-focused on having the Locust God in play. 2, let's kind of streamline and get away from just needing the bugs, because this is going to be a higher powered deck list. So in their play group, combo wins are accepted. A big thing that I looked at is if we go through this mana base, we can see there is a lot of enters the battlefield tapped or make this threshold. I feel like the mana base is probably one of the weakest issues in this. And also, just looking at the general overall cost of the deck, let's see, where are we at? Yeah, we're, I think 34, even though there's a ton of mana rocks in here, I think 34 might be a little bit too low. I mean, that's always up for debate, but so what we're going to do is I'm going to take this as the initial entry and I'm going to kind of run through it, focus it more down to a combo centric, not requiring the Locust God to win every game, get rid of this combat damage sub-theme, and try and address the mana base. Okay, so this is the copy of the deck, but then I've added 2 columns, add and remove. You can see I did a total of a 34 card swap, so it was pretty hefty. Although if you go to EDH Rec, a ton of these cards are in EDH Rec, but if you also would like to try and get away from being hyper-focused on needing the Locust God in play, a lot of these cards don't do a lot unless the Locust God is there. Teferi's Puzzle Box is a great card, just not really that powerful unless you're running and have Locust God in play. It also, I mean, there's a handful of different cards that make it pretty gross, but trying to lean away from Locust God centric. Because we're leaning away from him, we're not going to get as many critters, so we're not going to get as much from Mana Echoes, similar to getting away from the combat damage centric build. Also, not focused on these big one-time, I'm going to draw a bunch of cards. I tried to lean more into, let's have consistent, measurable, incidental gain of card draw, and dropped a ton of these come into play taps. I also cut 1 mountain, and you'll notice when we go over to the add side, where are the islands? Boop, boop, boop. I added a fair amount of islands, 4 islands. 1, the primary thing was to get us back up to about the 36 land count, but 2, looking at the breakdown of the deck, we needed more. We had more blue pips than red. It also didn't help that I cut more red than I had added. So Archmage Emeritus card draw, Curiosity Crafter card draw, Fairy Mastermind, Card Draw, Ledger Shredder. It's the same group that you've seen before. I will say a new card is this Molten Gatekeeper. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Molten Gatekeeper deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this does pair well with the Locust God, and also would combo with the same things that Niv Mizzet combos with. So yes, that requires the Locust God to be in play, but Niv Mizzet, of course, does not if you have Curiosity or Ophidian Eye. But Curiosity and Ophidian Eye on these also coordinates and combos with the Locust God. There's a creature that does something very similar, Tandem Lookout, but Molten Gatekeeper synergizes really well. Niv Mizzet is like the secret alternate commander, so if they keep knocking down your Locust God and you stick the Niv Mizzet and you put any of the 3 methods to do a card draw when he deals, then you just close the game out in that regard as well. Stormkill Nardis is just an amazing ramp card, and if you don't have green and you just have rocks, then we're trying to get ramp where we can. I was toying with Burgi, but Burgi gives red specific, so I did not use Burgi. Tandem Lookout, Witty Roastmaster is another one that when a creature enters the battlefield, it pings. Cleaned up the mana rocks a little bit. Like Commander Sphere is great, taps for any color, lets you draw a card if need be, but this deck does have a lot of card draw in it, so I swapped it for Decanter because same cost, does the same thing, but no maximum hand size is nice. Sensei's Divining Top. You will notice in the ad category, let me see if it says it up top. Yeah, $310. It's not like it was a cheap swap, but the guidance I received was no single card over $100, but the guy is well aware Powerful Magics cost a couple bucks. He did say another issue he was having was not just card draw, but being able to control the board state. So that's why you'll notice there is a huge amount. Offer You Can't Refuse, Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship, Force of Negation, Nurse's Reversal, Swan Song. Just a fair amount of counter magic or control based. Finale of Revelation is another awesome way to have no maximum hand size and draws you a ton of cards. Jessica's Will is ramp and card draw. Just an amazing card. And then the mana based correction, making sure we have mana of 2 different colors on a majority of them. Included the basic fetches, so that way we could streamline the mana base a little bit better. Card draw on a land, either side could fix your mana. Training Center is an amazing card in Commander. And of course, Urza Saga, getting you your 1-drops. And there are a fair amount of 1-drops. You could grab Mana Vault. You could grab Skull Clamp to squish the bugs' heads, which was in the deck before, but there was, what was it, Eldrazi Monument? Does that make them larger? Yeah, Eldrazi Monument makes them bigger, as well as Coat of Arms. So that was a bit of a non-bow with the Skull Clamp, and that's why I got rid of those. But Skull Clamp and the card draw is just too good. But yeah, Urza Saga having 3 targets for if you do consider Soul Ring, and sometimes that's your only target. But I'm going to break the deck down into chunks and categories so we can look at number-wise about where I'm at with this deck. Okay, so this is the deck broken down into its subsections, so that way you can see about where I'm at on number-wise and why I feel like these are the proper numbers. So the commander itself, counters and control. Control measures, I look at just what can I do that tells my opponent no. And giving your stuff Shroud is definitely one method to tell your guys, no thank you, I don't want you to kill my stuff. But really strong counter spell package. It's a really strong suite and gives you some redirection. Mana Drain is kind of like a counter ramp, but I didn't want to do a category for just that being a counter ramp. But Draw Ramp, I did have 2. You got Midnight Clock and Jessica's Will. Jessica's Will, the versatility of it, sometimes being both, is pretty neat. And this being a mana rock and still allowing you to get cards. is pretty wonderful. Draw and selection, 21 cards that either straight up draw you a card or just allow you a little bit of selection or that recursion. Bringing something back from the graveyard, that's another card in my hand. To me, I count it as a draw because it's putting something in my Kung Fu grip. So huge amount of just draw and selection. And then I have this is draw because some of it is based on draw, like Ophidian Eye, Curiosity, and Tandem Lookout. But the win conditions, outside of just the Locust God, you have Molten Gatekeeper that pairs with Locust God really well if it has any of these three pieces on it. You have Niv Mizzet, which just wins with any of those three pieces. Purphoros, with this amount of card draw, when you're top to bottom looking at 31 things in your deck that draw you a card, and really, if you look at Arcane Denial, 32 things that can draw you a card, that's a huge amount of bugs if this thing is in play. So Purphoros would do work. Impact Tremors would do work. Witty Roastmaster, Molten Gatekeeper. All of these things are going to be able to close the game out. But when you pair those with Ophidian Eye, Curiosity, or Tandem Lookout, it closes the game out real quick. Land base, this is what we're looking at now. And you'll notice I've pretty much cut out anything that comes into play tapped. Not a big fan of these, but I don't know. They were in the gentleman's original deck, so I just left them in there. Ramps and rocks. So we have, like I said, 2 ramp over here, but a total of 13 things that can ramp. A Stormkiln Artist can do some serious work when you're casting spells and instants and sorceries. And I'll break it into that category here in a second. But huge amount of rocks. Astronaut's Altar can put in some very heavy lifting when you're making a ton of bugs, because you could blue sun for 10 and draw 10, get 10 more of these dudes, and essentially now you've turned that what was 13 mana, X being 10, into 20 colorless. So it can cycle and continue that pretty strong. Also, that colorless can be used to cast a lot of these mana rocks and still keep you in the game. And additionally, Midnight Clock, 2 colorless, Greaves, 2 colorless, Deflecting Swat, 2 colorless, Guardianship, Force of Will. There's still a fair amount of cards in here that still have that 2 generic, so that colorless can still be put to work. Thought Vessel, maximum hand size is a cause of concern in this, just because you're running 32 different cards that say draw a card on them. Really 33 if you count the God, 34 if you count, I mean, there's a ton. But Thought Vessel helps with that, Decanter helps with that, and Reliquary Tower helps with that. Removal package, not super big, only 7 cards, but they're definitely quality 7 cards when you're looking at Chaos Warp, Psych Rift, Rapid Hybridization. Reality Shift is always great just to exile that big indestructible. Blasphemous Act does work because it can clear the board. Yes, it kills your stuff as well, but sometimes you need that. Where Psych Rift just shields down the table and lets you get in there with all your bugs. Otawara being able to channel, uncounterable ability to bounce something. And Strip Mine because you do have opponents that have very powerful lands that you need to deal with. The Tutor package, only a total of 8 things, and that's honestly if I'm counting the 3 that tutor lands specifically. But Trinket Mage getting that 1 drop because, like I said, there's 4 different 1 drops that you want. So Urza Saga's redundancy in that. Mystical Tutor, if you have to get that counterspell, is a must. You need it right now, or that Psych Rift, or the Jessica's Well, whatever you need at that time to really put a end to the game. And Fabricate to go get whatever artifact it is that you're hunting for. So I'm going to click this over to types, and we can see 36 lands, 8 sorceries, a 20 instants. So when I was talking about plenty of stuff to trigger Stormkiln Artist, we're looking at 28, and that's with none of the recursion bringing anything back. 28 things can trigger Storm Kiln. So there's a lot that can make it happen. Narset Parter Avail just does work. I mean, yes, it essentially draws you a card, but just being able to slow your opponents down, a little bit of hate can go a long way. Overall, looking forward to seeing how this plays once he puts this all together. And definitely, if you have insight or you've played a Locust God deck before, I'd love to hear about it, and I'd love to hear about neat synergies or combos that you used in the past that really synchronized well and synergized with the list as a whole. If there's any glaring misses, like, oh, I can't believe you didn't include the wings of the bug god or whatever, then let me know in the comments down below, because to error is human, and I am confident I am not the world's best deck builder, just trying to help a friend out, and he wanted something that was kind of strong and keeping it within a reasonable budget, nothing over $100, and this is where I'm at. All in all, hope you enjoyed this deck upgrade / deck tech. I'm Rob. This is Bion MTG. Good luck and have fun.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below.